Welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If Turkish stars are your guilty pleasure and you crave the inside scoop before anyone else, you've come to the right place. Before we dive in, tap that like, hit subscribe, and if you want to keep this community thriving, click the cattle button to join and help us deliver even more exclusive stories. Ready? Let's get into it. In an industry where reunions can shift the mood of an entire season, few pairings have the power to electrify the public like Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu. What first sounded like routine work talk, just another campaign with two bankable names, has slipped into something far more tantalizing. A renowned international perfume house, keen on a bold, romance-steeped concept, placed them side by side again. The move reignited a conversation many believed had quieted, and it did so with a single question hovering over every headline: is this reunion purely about the job, or is there a spark revisiting old territory? The thread of the story starts weeks back, when the luxury brand began scouting for a duo whose chemistry could be felt even in silence. The creative brief described an on-screen connection so authentic that viewers would carry the feeling long after the ad ended. In their search, the team stumbled into a shared history that was never noisy yet never gone, one wrapped in glances, pauses, and a familiarity that audiences still talk about as if it were yesterday. Sources say the approach began with Elçin. She was the first to receive the offer, a carefully crafted pitch with mood boards, scent notes, and a campaign language built on memory and desire. The turning point came when she learned who else was on the shortlist. The moment Barış's name surfaced, the decision formed quickly. She didn't rush, she settled into certainty. People close to the production insist her answer was almost immediate: if he was part of the vision, she was ready to step in. It wasn't framed as nostalgia. It sounded like trust in a working rhythm that had always felt effortless. Meanwhile, Barış's side of the conversation added its own layer. He accepted, but not before laying out one clear condition: this couldn't be glossy for gloss's sake. The set needed texture, something intimate, organic, lit like real life, and tuned to feeling over spectacle. He emphasized that it wasn't about the paycheck, he wanted the work to breathe. With Elçin involved, he hinted, the chemistry would take care of itself if the environment allowed it. Once whispers turned into confirmations, the internet did what it does best: it raced. Timelines filled with screenshots from past scenes, edits spliced with melancholic music, and endless comments from viewers who felt like they were reliving a moment they'd never fully let go of. Some called it destiny, others called it timing. Many suggested that Elçin's yes meant something more than admiration for a concept. Whether that's fact or fantasy, the reaction only emboldened the talk that there might be something beneath the surface. During a recent public event, a reporter asked Elçin, point blank, why this collaboration and why now? True to form, she answered with composure. She said she rarely filters professional choices through anything personal, then added that with certain colleagues, work feels like an instinct rather than a decision. With him, she explained, it always feels easy, and that ease matters. Her restraint made the moment bigger. She said plenty without giving away anything at all. Barış, for his part, stayed sparing with words. Caught leaving a studio, he didn't push the conversation away but didn't entice it, either. His response, short, careful, and, in its own way, intimate, was that some connections don't ask for labels. That line entered the rumor mill and refused to leave, mainly because it sounded both personal and pragmatic, and it walked the tightrope between the two perfectly. When cameras rolled, they did so in a hotel poised on the Bosphorus, where the morning light sharpens and the night air softens. The set design leaned into textures: damp stone, silk curtains that breathed with the breeze, a color palette of ember, smoke, and rose. From the first rehearsal, witnesses say the atmosphere changed. The crew could feel the unspoken rhythm between them, small gestures, quick looks, laughter that came too easily to be rehearsed. It was like watching two people pick up a conversation from the exact sentence where they'd left it, even if years had passed. One scene quickly became a legend. The director asked for silence, no score, no dialogue, just two people standing across a narrow distance, eyes doing all the work. The first take floated through the room, and the silence that followed wasn't the kind that asks for approval. It was the kind that says everyone understood what they just saw. Breaking the hush, Barış joked that adding music would only get in the way. Elçin, barely above a whisper, answered that the melody was already there, written in the gaze. That line was repeated across fan pages within hours, celebrated for its softness and what it seemed to admit without admitting anything at all. Then came the teaser. 30 seconds framed by rain-slick streets, reflections rippling in puddles, and two figures whose pathlines cross in a way that feels inevitable. They pass each other, pause, turn, a look locks and lingers, then everything else, the cars, the city, the water, fades into background noise. The final caption sealed it: certain scents can release memories you thought were gone, only to find they've been waiting all along. The message was simple. The message was unmistakable. Elçin posted a still from the shoot, a window fogged by rain, a silhouette in profile, a caption that read like a confession in code. Sometimes, she wrote, the right story finds you when you're finally listening. It was measured, poetic, and open to interpretation. Minutes later, Barış added his own thread. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He wrote a single word: always. That was enough to spark a wave of theories that no analysis could pin down. Daytime television and late-night panels pounced on every frame. Experts on body language weighed in with arrows and circles on screenshots. Stylists deconstructed wardrobe choices. A director known for romantic dramas explained how proximity on screen can feel like handwriting only two people share. Critics argued that the ad was a masterclass in restraint. Fans argued that some things don't need schooling at all, they just are. Of course, the chorus wasn't all applause. According to unconfirmed chatter, someone close to Barış's current partner described discomfort after seeing the edit, saying the looks traded in that final beat felt too real. There was no statement, no confirmation, and no clarifying comment from anyone involved. Still, the idea landed in the conversation and held on. How much is performance, and how much is the ghost of something unfinished? Neither of them addressed that angle directly. They didn't deny, and they didn't indulge. Instead, the narrative drifted elsewhere, toward what might come next. A well-placed journalist claimed that a major platform had already reached out, curious about translating this lightning-in-a-bottle energy into a series. Talks, the journalist insisted, were underway, without revealing more than that. If true, that would mean the ad was never just an ad. It was a doorway. As the final day wrapped, the Bosphorus looked like polished slate, sun behind clouds, boats sliding by like sketches. Paparazzi waited at the side entrance, and one image, taken in that half-breath between goodbye and letting go, became the photograph everyone talked about. They leaned in for an embrace that wasn't staged or stiff, it was warm, a shade longer than polite, with a familiarity that read on camera as comfort. Just before they separated, he leaned to her ear, said something that never made it to any microphone, and whatever it was, it drew a smile that lit across her face all at once. That was the frame. That was the one that set comment sections on fire. From there, the narrative was a current that nobody could stop. People wrote that some stories don't end so much as they change shape. Others said the scent campaign had turned into a love letter, even if nobody intended it that way. The brand, for its part, stayed on message, praising the artistry and saying little else, which only intensified the allure. Behind the scenes, more details dripped out. The director had storyboarded with negative space in mind, letting pauses carry meaning. The cinematographer controlled the rain to fall in steady sheets, so the world around them would pulse like a heartbeat. Wardrobe worked with textures that reminded you of memory, velvet that holds on to touch, linen that wrinkles where a hand lingers. Every element was designed to look undesigned, to feel inevitable. When the camera found their faces, it didn't need to look for chemistry. It was already there, waiting. Crew members described the atmosphere as patient, almost tender. Between takes, they moved around each other with an ease that comes only from time spent working side by side. There were inside jokes that didn't need setups, references that the crew didn't need explained. If the goal was to capture a feeling that couldn't be faked, the set gave it the conditions to bloom. Meanwhile, the audience split into camps in the best possible way. Some argued this was a perfect, contained moment, art doing what art does, conjuring a truth that exists only in the frame. Others insisted that the frame had cracked open something real. Whether you believe one or the other, it's hard to ignore the pull of a reunion that seems to speak to both heart and craft at once. And then there's the timing. Careers evolve, priorities shift, and the paths that once ran parallel can drift apart without any drama at all. That's the thing about reunions, they remind you that distance doesn't always mean disconnect. For two performers who built a shared language in front of a camera years ago, stepping back into that language now felt like a line read in a familiar room. You don't have to relearn it. You just remember. So where does this leave us? With a campaign that exceeded its brief. With a teaser that folded into a story the culture was ready to tell again. With a whispered word at a goodbye and a smile that refuses to be filed away as just good acting. Maybe it's all performance, maybe it's something gentler and more complicated than that. Maybe it's the rare kind of partnership that keeps its mystery intact even as it gives you everything you came for. What do you think? Is there more here than the official line admits, or is this the finest example of two professionals turning chemistry into a craft that feels like truth? Tell us your take in the comments. And before you go, show some love, like, subscribe, and don't forget to click Cattle to support Turkish Spotlight Secrets. We'll be watching every beat of this story, and when the next chapter drops, you'll hear it here first.